Hi, I'm Kristen, and today I'll be talking about hydromancy, which is water scrying or the art of divination through water. So this is a follow-up to a recent video that I made about the symbolism of water and how spirit or non-human intelligence may communicate with us through water images or through water itself. And so I have received a few messages from spirit during meditation or from non-human intelligence beings that are in contact with me that have encouraged me to engage in water scrying related specifically to natural bodies of water or reflective surfaces of water. And so I thought I would come on here and I would talk about kind of what I've done, what my setup is like, and kind of how this ties into historic kind of divination or historic channeling and communication with spirit. So back in ancient Egypt, the priests of that time, they used to fill up bowls of water and they would actually gather children who would act as kind of like seers to look into the water and have visions. Then in ancient Greece, there were springs and wells that were kind of seen as prophetic, and they would have people come and they would look into like these natural bodies of water, specifically like running water, to see if there would be any communications that they could receive. And then in Persia, they also used to use bowls of water, I believe, that were made out of copper in order to kind of receive communication. And then in more recent history, I would say probably over the past few thousand years, not going way, way back, in European folk magic, Europeans have like looked into ponds and lakes and natural bodies of water in order to kind of find out who their future lovers will be. And so it's kind of like a cute way of handling water and handling this kind of like water scrying. And so I also, as I was thinking about making this video, I was thinking about like how this has come up so kind of infrequently within pop culture. And there's only a few kind of examples that I could think of where I remember having seen this. And so in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, there's like kind of this big scene where Frodo is meeting with Galadriel and he is wanting to give her the ring. And so as he's kind of like descending down into this forest, she has like her kind of mirror and her that she looks in order to receive prophecies and visions. And her mirror setup is kind of like this big silver circular kind of bowl. She pours water into it, and then she looks and she kind of sees Sauron. She sees everything that's going to be happening. And so that was like probably the biggest example of hydromancy that I've seen in pop culture, but also in Harry Potter, this also happens. So in Dumbledore's office, there's a kind of like a shallow bowl or a basin. It's either made out of stone or metal, and it's called. Let me see, I have it written down here. It's called a pensieve, I believe. And so that pensieve, it's filled with like some kind of unknown liquid, probably water. And then they take like these little kind of glass vials, and they pour the vials into the water, and it creates memories. And then when you kind of submerge your face into this liquid, you're able to go back in time and see things that have happened. And so in the Harry Potter films, we see that Harry uses like this kind of pensieve scrying bowl in order to look at Snape's memories of his mother. And then I believe there was another time where he was able to see like Dumbledore's memories of interacting with Voldemort. Well, Voldemort, I believe, was a student named like Thomas Riddle, and so um, this seemed like a little bit more magic-y, I suppose, just because it's like pulling memories without from within the person's mind and putting them into these bottles and then having to take the bottles and put it into something else in order to kind of like get those visions. Um, yeah, it's really surprising that um, how infrequently movies and television kind of incorporate this like ancient art of channeling and receiving communications through divination. Um, I know that in most films and TV, like mirrors are used. So we've seen mirrors being used in Star Wars, and we've seen it being used in like the Neverending Story and things like that. Because but for all intents and purposes, water scrying is a natural way of looking into a mirror and seeing what's looking back at you. So just to quickly get into kind of like my setup that I have at home and why I've had this setup. I received a communication and a meditation that there was a woman that either used to be me or has some kind of connection to me, or she was being used as an example. But I saw this woman who appeared to be Native American, and she was sitting at the edge of a small lake or a very large pond. And she had her hair in braids. Her hair was dark. She looked like she had like some oversized kind of clothing on, and she put her hand out into the lake and kind of like started stirring around all of the water. And then she looked down, and from the vision that I was given, it was like it kind of zoomed in from behind this woman, like over her shoulder, over her head, and down into the water. And I was seeing like these ripples within the water, and there was a message given that whatever was seen or whatever was kind of jumping out from that the natural imagery within the water, like that was the message. um, and then I don't believe it was too long after that. I don't believe it was during the same meditation, but around the same time period, I was given another kind of vision of holding this large bowl or basin that was just a mirror, and it had water on the top of it. And I was given like the kind of imagery that I should have like a candlelight or some kind of like very low light in order to pick up whatever the message would be coming from like this very shallow water, as it kind of like rippled around and moved around, or even as like the candlelight was kind of making designs and patterns on the water to kind of pick up from that. So for the longest time, I was like, I don't know what to do here. I do live by a lake, so behind me, like a few, about a road or two back, there is a lake. But I've always felt very self conscious to kind of go out and think about doing this at the lake with people around. It's just, it's made me a bit uncomfortable. So I ended up going to the store, and I got a very large mirrored stainless steel tray that is very similar to the one that is in Lord of the Rings. So here you can see it. And so I got this tray with the intention of pouring water into it and kind of looking for whatever messages were going to come through. And so I could just show you an example of kind of like what we'd be doing here. So here's my tray and pouring the water in. So until the entire surface is covered. And so if you can kind of see it, just even like the tiniest amount of movement, the tiniest flickers, it kind of completely changes kind of like what you're able to see, and like what might be coming to you as a message. And so I actually didn't get that kind of tray or this mirror that I could use for scrying until recently, so I haven't even tried it out yet. But um, there was importance in the message of having something like this within my home, so that if I am maybe struggling to receive telepathic communications, if I'm stressed, if I'm tired, or if there's too much going on, it seems like this kind of object and this water scrying is an easier way of receiving communication from spirit and non-human intelligence. And so yeah, I'm really excited to see where it goes. I would almost put this like in the same type of camp or the same type of divination as almost people who might read tea leaves, or there's people who will get shells or rocks, and they'll kind of toss them, and depending on like which way they turn up or how they scatter together, it will give a message to the person that's kind of reading that. But all of these are kind of using natural elements and using what God has given us in order to um, just tell like what it is that spirit, God, whoever is around us would like us to know. And so yeah, I am very excited, especially as it's becoming warmer weather, in order to like I'm excited to start using this tray and start practicing water scrying and kind of seeing what comes through. As a kid, I did like kind of like mirror work, so just kind of staring in front of my mirror and like seeing like what would change about my face, and like seeing like the longer that I stared, like my face kind of got lost and didn't exist anymore. But then I was starting to see like a large shadow that would come up behind me, and I would see like things start to like morph around me. I'm halfway expecting like the kind of mirror work that I used to do when I was much younger to be slightly replicated within this water scrying, or this hydromancy. But I guess we will see when it happens. And so if you've ever had any kind of experiences with looking into water and seeing something looking back at you, or seeing a message, seeing a word, seeing um, just anything that is in the water, and it seems like it was made just for you to see and to interpret, please let me know. I would love to hear about it. So thank you so much for listening today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.